Hi everyone, and I'm just so excited to do this webinar today. I know Twinkl very well through my wife, who is a primary school teacher, so I've seen kind of how the resources work. And from my point of view, I think it's fantastic. And it's just great to be able to share with all of you some of the fantastic resources that we have available, and also what our devices actually do for anybody who's maybe heard of them, but not quite seen them in action or seen what we kind of do. So I'm really looking forward to it, and being dyslexic myself as well, I think it's really interesting to see how everything's developed more now. So I'm just really excited to speak to all of you about some of the fantastic work that we've been doing with Twinkl.
Jim really is the excited puppy in the corner when he realises how much good work is being done in schools to support dyslexic learners, because he's been there on that journey himself and didn't necessarily get the kind of supports he needed. So he does get very excited when you all join and support. So I'm Julia Clouter. I was a class teacher for 25 years and then decided to work in the EdTech industry with scanning pens. Since I've been doing that, which is for about 5 years now. I know I look very young for, yes, I know what you're thinking. So it's been a really exciting journey, because it means that I can help many more people with their literacy. I taught in primary PRUs and secondary PRUs and did mainstream too. So I'm really lucky to have been across many different types of schools and worked with many wonderful professional colleagues. Next slide, Jim. So this is just the outline of what we're going to do today. So we've got a partnership, as I said earlier, hence my lovely handshake here. It's exciting that Twinkl has now got some resources and that we can bring our information to you via the Twinkl platform. We think it's a really great way forward. So the title, Scanning Pens for Reading Progress. We know that the scanning pens can really help to support learners who struggle with literacy, and we're going to tell you exactly how that works. We're going to show you the resources that you can download from Twinkl, and that's going to include some really wonderful pieces like the Helping Hands Detective Agency, the case studies, and we're going to also share the toolbox approach with you. So the door is going to open to a lot of resources this afternoon, which we hope you will download from Twinkl, and also we hope that you'll pop across to the Scanning Pens website and have a little investigate over there as well. And we've got time at the end for Q&A, so don't be shy. Let's get those questions rolling and we will endeavour to answer them. So let's talk about these scanning pens. If you've not yet come across them, genuinely, we are an established, trusted and proven provider of scanning pens, pen scanner devices. We've been doing this for a long time. Scanning Pens has been doing this for more than 20 years. We just had last year we had our 20th birthday anniversary, which was fantastic. And it means that we've been able to provide support to many, not just in the UK, but globally. And our knowledge has grown and developed greatly over that time. Initially, we started saying this is a product for people with dyslexia, and we focused in on one-to-one support, and we looked at the benefits of providing that on-demand support for learners who didn't necessarily have the TA support available, or when they wanted to do their learning independently of a teacher. And so that was our initial discussion. But since we've been on this journey, we've realised that our pen can support many more young learners, and in lots of different sorts of situations. We've also realised through working with super groups of people like Nason, for example, that the scanning pen provides an inclusive by design opportunity for you to be able to support not just those children who absolutely need that specific learning support in the classroom, but as a more universal design for learning approach. And this is going to become more important going forward, because we know that by 2025, about 25% of our young people coming into the classroom are going to have some learning difference, disability, difficulty. So I think going forward, having an awareness of a range of assistive technologies is really helpful, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the toolbox approach as we go. We've also, in this part of the timeline now with learning, where we've had a huge acceleration of the digital agenda, And that means that it's really helpful to know that the scanning pen actually supports the digital agenda too. And it can be quite difficult for some people to move into this new world of being supported with platform-based tools. And the pen does provide a really nice transitional bridge. So we're going to be talking about those things. So let's start by talking about universal inclusive practice. I alluded to this earlier when I said that we started thinking about the pen as a specialist support tool for dyslexia. And then what we realized is that if you provide the pen as a targeted to support, not just to individuals, but to groups of learners, it grows their confidence and their learning. It also helps to destigmatize from those learners who may well have felt spotlighted and anxious to be the only person in that classroom using something slightly different. And now we're at a point where the scanning pen is much more a universal provision across many classrooms. And we know this because schools are buying multiples of pens. So in primaries, we used to sell what we call onesies and twosies into schools, and now multi-academy trusts are recognizing the very positive benefits for all the children, and so many more pens are going in class packs. I think Jim would agree with me with that. One of the approaches that is really helpful as a universal inclusive practice approach is the literacy toolbox approach. And this is something that I've been developing with some colleagues initially in Malta about 4 years ago, and was recently taken up by the British Dyslexia Association as part of the Commission into Dyslexia Support. And it was one of the key recommendations that were made. So the literacy toolbox, the picture you've got there shows a box. It literally could be anything. It could be a drawer, it could be a shelf. Your literacy toolbox could be any place in your room, but the idea is that it is a place where all sorts of assistive technology to support children with their literacy is available, their literacy and their learning. So just to unpick a few things in the picture, there are things like fidget toys. We know that this can help reduce stress and anxiety. Yes, there are talking buttons and whisper phones, tubaloos that help you to hear your speech sounds, or if you're reading in a very noisy room, that can really help you to tune into your own thinking and learning. So if you are interested in this literacy toolbox approach, we will pop some links a little later on as to all of that information, because there's some CPD around the literacy toolbox approach. One of the key tools for children who really struggle with that literacy is the scanning pen, and we recommend that a pen goes into the literacy toolbox, the toolbox goes in the classroom, the teacher invites children to pick and choose any of the tools in there and use it to support their learning or a part of a lesson. And it works really well when the teacher demonstrates and uses the tools themselves. So we have this normal way of teaching approach, which I think is absolutely the way forward, really across all assistive technologies. Works particularly well with the scanning pen, because what will happen is that you start to feel really confident about choosing and using the tool that will support you best. And also you end up with this metacognitive approach from the children where they can say to you, oh, I really wanted to use that pen today and someone else has got it, or I needed the magnifier, miss, and someone else has got it. And these kind of conversations can open up lots of different thought pathways for them to understand their learning, but also for you to have that conversation. Oh, I see you've chosen that pink overlay for the 4th time. That's interesting. Why do you keep choosing that one? How does that make reading and literacy different for you? It's a conversation starter, but it also enables children to self-select supporting resources. We know that the scanning pen works extremely well in the literacy toolbox. And you can put, if you've got a class of 30, you're probably going to have 3 children who've got sort of some specialist needs or who really need some targeted support, and you can direct them to go to the scanning pen in the box. So those are the ways that I would suggest. It's pretty easy to introduce a scanning pen, but we're going to show you all of the support that's now sitting on Twinkl that will help you to do this work. Essentially, what we want to do is give you the tools to help create your inclusive classroom. We know that the pens will work for all learners, particularly EAL learners, because they get that additional modelling and support from the pen as it reads back. So the pen is a text-to-speech device. And I think text-to-speech and speech-to-text are two of the strongest tools that we primary to support children with their literacy. You can get that continual support, you can get the modelling, and if you perhaps only speak home language at school with or you speak home language with your friends at school and you speak home language at home, then maybe you don't get a lot of practice of speaking English and you might not actually hear those words that you are learning in a very clear way. And if you have been provided with a scanning pen, then you have those opportunities to listen and review your learning. So that's very exciting. So there are class-wide benefits for all children using the Reader 2, and it's lovely for them to all know what the technologies and tools are, because then there's no mystery. Okay, exciting. This is the really exciting bit. So we've provided some resources to Twinkl, and Twinkl I have to say, hats off to Twinkl. They have done an amazing job producing the Scanning Pens implementation guide. And thank you, Hannah. You can find that pack. Here is the link. There are 5 pieces, or is it 6 pieces in there? One of them is the Eco Colour Guide. So that's on the Scanning Pens implementation guide. It's a 22-page guide that will literally go through every way that you can introduce a scanning pen into your classroom supportively. It will go through the types of learners. It's just a one-stop place where you can get everything that you need. So I'm definitely going to encourage you to have a look at this 22-page guide, because it's that, honestly, you're getting the benefit of my brain for the last 5 years. Everything that I've been thinking about consolidated in a way that hopefully makes it really easy to navigate and understand. So the implementation guide, we've also got some other really helpful documents that I'll talk about as we go along. They are all sitting in your reading pen implementation pack. Now then, it's my turn to hand over to Jim, because you might be wondering, what is this scanning pen that Julia's talking about? I haven't got a clue, but Jim will now help you to understand what this fabulous piece of technology is. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Julia. And as you can hear from Julia's voice, just as I am, really excited for this kind of partnership with Twinkl, and being able to get our resources on their website is just so exciting. And as Julia mentioned, a lot of you may not have heard of our pen, or you've heard of our pen but not quite sure what it does. Julia mentioned text-to-speech. So what our device does is it reads printed resources, and then it reads it aloud to you via the headphones that are provided on the pen. Let me just give you kind of the basic rundown of what the pen actually does. So you can see from the picture there, it's a small handheld device. So it's very portable. It's easy to use. As you get it out the box, you receive some headphones in there, you get a charging cable, and you also get the case with it as well. So the purpose of this pen is to try and create that kind of independence, that confidence for that student to sit there and read for themselves as much as they possibly can. It will scan over a word, a line, or several lines at once, and then it will read aloud back to you. So you've got those headphones plugged in, and it's a 3.5mm jack, so they can just plug in either the headphones provided or their own headphones as well. We move away from kind of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, as we want to kind of encourage them to stick to the reading and stick to kind of not being able to access apps and being able to be distracted. On how easy it is to get distracted when you've got internet, maybe on your phone or on a laptop or computer. So we keep the kind of device very simplified and easy to use. There's a number of factors as well that the pen uses. So for example, text size, for example, it works from 6 to 24 points, so quite small text to rather large text as well, which I think is really important, especially for those dyslexic learners as well. It works with coloured backgrounds and coloured text. Originally, our old device didn't work that well with fonts, but now we've improved with the CPEN Reader 2. So that now works with all fonts pretty much. So any font such as Diary the Wimpy Kid, or these artistic fonts, the pen will scan over with ease and then it will read aloud back to you. You would have heard Julia maybe talk about this multimodal learning. So this kind of idea of holding the device, scanning over, seeing it on the screen, and then hearing it aloud, which is really, really important. And I think one of the most important points that I'll emphasize to everybody is that the device is distraction free. So if there's somebody using this device, because it's quite small and discreet, it doesn't distract the other students in the classroom, and also the person who's reading it feels quite valued. They feel quite independent, and I think that's what gives them that boost, that they can use it for themselves and they're actually reading. And we'll go through later on in the presentation some of the case studies that we've got, and you'll see a lot of that really nice student feedback and some of the pupil voice, and how important it is that this device has just encouraged them to read for themselves, which I think is just really key here. So some of the interesting kind of settings and features that we have on the pen is, not only will the pen read, so with the text reader functionality, it also has a dictionary on it. So it also has the Oxford Primary Dictionary, the North American Dictionary, and the Collins Dictionary on there. So if you're struggling with vocabulary and they want to scan over a word and they want to hear the meaning aloud, so instead of looking for a dictionary, they can do that on our device. So they can actually scan over a single word, and then the device will show the definition on the screen, and then it will start to read aloud to you. And one of the exciting features that our pen actually does as well is, if, say, you've scanned, say, 5 words and you've been listening to the definition, and maybe you've forgotten the first word that you've learned that day, you can go into the history mode and you can actually go back and look at the definition again. So it's that repetition, but it's also a great way to go back to the teacher and say, I've learned this new word, miss, today, and I just want to talk you through what the meaning is, and you know, you'll see that excitement from them. So it's really great. It's a really fantastic feature that you can use. Julia's also mentioned about this bridge, this idea of the kind of toolkit and some of the ways in which you can use our pen. And you may already have assistive technology, and I saw that there's a few people from advisory teaching positions, and you probably recommend other technology. So our pen is actually Google partners. So we were recognised for the way in which you can input our pen into a computer. So what I mean by this is with the USB cable, what you can do is, and Julia will mention more of this in her presentation, is you can plug our pen in to a laptop or computer, which you use to charge, and you can scan over a word or a whole line, and from there, that text that you've scanned will appear onto the computer screen. So you can kind of see where I'm going here. So what you can do is you can create this bridge from paper to your computer screen instantly. So you could be on emails and you can scan and capture that text and it will appear straight on the computer screen. You may be thinking, what can you do with this? So what you can do with this then is you can use Microsoft Immersive Reader, Read and Write, for example, to then read aloud to you. So that makes this device a kind of more inclusive, a toolkit approach. So you can start to use it with other software solutions as well. And that's the key to our pen. You can actually use it with other, and it complements other solutions very well. The other great thing about our device is it has a recorder facility, which I think is great to record instructions, record voice clips on there. You know, people who are really auditory learners can plug their headphones in, they can record onto there. And because this device has 16 gigabyte storage on there, you'll never run out of room, which is fantastic as well. And with our settings feature, you can personalize the device. Can't remember the next slide. Brilliant. So there we go. So you can personalize the device so that with the settings you can change the voice, you can change different accents, you can change the speed that the voice speaks back to you as well, which I think is really key for those with slow processing that just need things broken down. So you can change the speed from 0 to 5, so 0 being the slowest and 5 being the quickest. So you can really play around with these settings, which kind of brings me on to the next slide. So with our device being hardware, it's really, really important to have the right training and have the right tools and the right guides to help and support you. So Julia, who's been absolutely fantastic, has created these great resources, and these are all on the packs that we have on Twinkl. So what they do is they just explain how to use the pen in a really simplified version. And for me, being dyslexic, having loads of words on the screen doesn't help me very much. So to have them in picture format, I think is really important, especially for some of the students that you'd be working with as well. So we've just broken it down into really simple key steps. So you'll see from the pictures, it shows you how to hold the pen, the angle to use it at. You know, it tells you as you push down on the pen, the light comes on. I think these are just really simple steps, but they help with the training element, especially if the TA is working really closely with the student. You're working in the intervention lesson and you've got maybe 6, 7 students. These are just great guides to give to the students, but also the teachers who you're giving the training on the pens. We wanted to make the pen really simplified. You know, it looks a bit like a highlighter or a pen or pencil. So we wanted to make it that normal way of working. You know, they're not straying away from something. This is a really simple solution. So this is what the guides kind of give you. And you'll see from the hints and tips, you know, it shows you how to hold it, that you can go to left and right handed as well, choosing the different settings, and how you access all of the different menus as well, which I think is really important. So getting prepared is really important as well, and so mastering some of the basics of the device. So our device is just like a mobile phone. It runs off kind of that ion battery, so it takes 2 to 3 hours to charge, which with the mini USB cable, you just plug in into your laptop or computer, and it gives you that kind of 8 hours of constant use. It's really important as well to remember, if you are using these devices as part of your normal way, that we're using them all the time, and then at the end of the day, give it 2 or 3 days and then you put it on charge. We had a lot of people that would leave the pens in a cold cupboard, and then when they would get them out for maybe examination purposes, they would struggle to power it up. So just like any device with a battery, just like ours, just keep on top of charging, keeping that nice and warm. One of the fantastic features that we have on our pen is called the Run Wizard. So imagine when you first start up your mobile phone or you start up a new piece of technology, you run through kind of a small wizard where it asks you to set the language, it asks you to log in. So a similar thing with our pen, it just runs through each setting for you. So it will ask you for the talking menu. Are you left and right handed? Do you want the auto read functionality on? Do you want the speed and volume? What kind of, so it allows you to actually set the pen up and personalize it to that student's abilities. So when you first turn on the pen, it runs through the wizards. So you'll just quickly look through it, but you can also access the settings and you can run through the wizard again. So if you find a way that a student learns, so maybe they need it slowed down, you can go through the wizard again and get personalized for that specific student, which makes it really exciting. And you'll see there that Julia's added the labels, which I've seen in many schools. You maybe want to label the pen, which has a student's name, which makes it specific for them and makes it really personalized, which I think is a really nice touch. We also have short video clips, which just break down the settings for you, which I think is really key and important. And I think having them really short as well keeps people's attention. And we also have all of the exciting resources, such as on our website and on Twinkl as well. One of the key features as well is ensuring the teacher's commitment, that modelling, encouraging and normalising the use on the pen. And I think I've heard this from a lot of feedback from the schools that I've gone to, where they say they just don't want to look different. They don't want to use this pen. How can I get someone to use it? And I think a lot of schools have said to me, sometimes it comes from student advocacy. Sorry, I can't always say. So if a student's using it, the other students around them will look and think, oh, that looks cool. How do I use that? How do I work? And then they'll go over and talk to them, and then they're showing it. They're saying, oh, look, this is what this does. It scans a word and reads to you. And then that gives that person, that student there, that empowerment, that they feel that they're giving something back to other people. and seeing others using the pens as well, that's really important. So it gives them that normalization, you know, it makes them feel like they're part of the group as well. So I think that's really key in the way in which we model this to people. We don't make it as if it's just for that one specific student, because then that segregates them. What we need to do is make it so it's all inclusive. You may only have, you know, budget to have one device, but if you make it out like it's a pen that anybody can use, or maybe you have a ticket that somebody grabs and they use it for that 10 minutes, I think that's really, really important. And that's how you'll get other students on board, because I know how easy it is to be stigmatized. I've been there, you know, feeling different because I struggle. That's the key, and that's how we encourage people to use our devices. So this is definitely Julia. So I'll pass over to Julia. Sorry, I probably drowned it on a bit too long, but I'll pass over to Julia to talk about the benefits of the devices.
You're all good, Jim. So as you were talking about the pen, I just thought I would mention that what happens when the words come up on the body of the pen is that they track with a blue highlighter behind the word as the pen reads. It's a bit like subtitles, really. So essentially what you're getting is this subtitle, listening, looking, making a connection to that word. This is why we build comprehension so quickly for children who start using the pens, because they are really getting that link. So all the research that relates to titles is really equally appliant to anything where you get the words that are highlighting as they're being read along. But we'll come on to research and case studies in a little while. So we have lots of children who will benefit from the reader pen, and many of those children with neurodiverse differences really benefit. So I hate to say it, but we still are in a COVID-19 learning loss situation. We do have lots of children who didn't build their vocabulary because they spent an awful lot of time not communicating with other children at that point in time. And so I think you're close to this, you're seeing it. And I'd love to know if you could just pop an emoji if you are seeing the development of language really slowed down in your schools and with your children. I'd be interested to know if you could just pop that onto the screen. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's my impression that children are really struggling with their language development. So that's an interesting area for me, because I know that with the overlearning that you can do with these pens, it will absolutely support language and learning gain. So let's have a think about who these children are. When I think about my children who have social, emotional and mental health difficulties, or who are masking or acting out or creating distractions, I do tend to think that behavior is the behavior is the communication that's telling you that they're finding it very, very difficult to access the learning. So where reading confidence has been lost, sometimes we get behaviors, and this is an opportunity for using the pen, because it enables participation by those children. I've had a situation recently with a child who didn't want to speak, who didn't want to read at all, but was really happy to let the pen do the reading for them and let the pen give the answers for them. So that was a nice breakthrough as well. So in terms of focusing for ADHD, you've tied the child to the work, you know. You've got them listening, you have got them scanning, and you've got them looking, and they are completely tied in. And with that distraction-free environment, they can make very good progress too. If you are somebody who struggles with reading fatigue, you maybe worked really hard for 30 minutes in the classroom and you've just reached a point where you're at the cognitive overload and you cannot go further. That's a lovely opportunity for you to be able to continue your learning and push through that barrier that you may have. Other opportunities with children, it's going to be with those children with cognition and learning challenges. So dyslexia is a really obvious one, but in terms of acquisition of literacy skills, moderate learning difficulties, this is another good opportunity. And because the pen has got a huge amount of memory, as Jim mentioned earlier, It means that you can get into the business of repetition, which is one of the things that the Education Endowment Foundation tell us at Key Stage 2 is so important to embedding phonics and embedding literacy. It's those repetition opportunities. So you can store anything that you scan in the memory of the pen and review it. You can pre-scan information into the pen and provide that information on the pen to a group of children so that they can listen to it as part of their learning activity. You can find all of those definitions sitting in the dictionary, and there's a nice little feature on the pen called practice mode, which means that you can pick up all of the words that have been enlarged, highlighted, the definitions have been found, and they're all just sitting there, and you can say, okay, I want to look at all the words for this week or the last 2 weeks or whatever it might be, and then you can go back and you can do that process of review through the pen. So for processing difficulties, absolutely you've got that support there. For memory and reasoning and sequencing and organization, I think it's quite a useful tool to have. We talked a little bit about language earlier and how children don't seem to be getting the exposure to the amount of words that they were previously. So, and we also have this rise of developmental language difficulties that we are finding in the classrooms. So in order to support that rapid finding of words, the pen is very useful. Jim, I'm going to just keep going on to the next slide and show folks another of the nice resources inside of the pack. CIC stands for Child in Care. We used to have lots of different acronyms for children in care, so that you may be knowing it under something slightly different. Let's have a look at this feedback form here. So what I've got is a really nice like heart scale with some very friendly faces where you can survey and work with the children to find out what their feelings are towards reading, what their feelings are towards learning. And I've made it so that you've got 2 dates. You can put the first date and guide them through. So the first question might be, can you see the words on the page clearly? And they can say, no, I can't see them at all. And maybe you can have a conversation about vision. What's the second question? Sounding out and blending words helps me to learn new words. Well, maybe they've not mastered that, and so they put their confused face on, and that will give you an indication of an area where that child might need support too. Or this one here, question 5, is about overlays and reader pens and reading rulers, and the question is, I know what can help me to read. So if the child is now putting that lovely smiley face on there, go back to the previous slide, Jim, you know that they are absolutely in control of their learning. And the reason I've given you 2 dates is so that you can go back and you can measure their progress in time. And I think this is a very helpful way of you understanding how impactful certain tools have been for your children. So please feel free to use this, not just for the reader pen, but around their feelings about reading and learning, particularly if they are acting out and they're showing you through their behaviour that they're disengaged. It's a worthwhile activity. Let's have the next one now, please, Jim. And I think it might be you, because this is about setting up the C-Pen for individual support, but don't dwell too long on it because we've got a resource for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Julia. And yeah, so this is the kind of run wizard functionality which I kind of touched upon in my last couple of slides, and this just gives you an overview of kind of the features broken down a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is just talk them through quickly with you. So when you're in the run wizard mode and you're looking at some of the different areas that you want to kind of implement, the first area will be the playback function, so the talking menu, the text and scan languages, and the different voice. So the first one is the talking menu. So this is where every menu that you navigate through will speak back aloud to you. So it will go text reader, dictionary, and then it just helps you to navigate through. This is a perfect solution for those students with possible visual impairment, for example. They can't quite see the screen on the device, but they're able to obviously scan the lines and they just struggle to have a look and navigate through. We also have the text and scan languages for those EAL students potentially that want to change the menus into some of the languages that are available on our device, such as French, Spanish, and we've also added in Italian, and quote me if I'm wrong, Julia, is German on there, I think it is. So you can go onto there and change the different languages on there. And we also have the different voices, which I think is really key when it comes to text to speech. I think we've all heard the Stephen Hawking's type voice. So we have moved away from that type of voice now, and we do have a British, an American accent, we have an Irish accent, we have an Australian. It reminds me a little bit of the old sat-navs where you could change it to an Irish accent, for example. So you can change the different voices on there as well, which I think is really key. We also have the accessibility functionality, such as changing it from left to right-handed. So if you're a right-handed user, that's the normal default on the device, but you can go into settings, you can go on there and select left-handed mode. And what that does is basically flip the screen. So if you're holding it right-handed, it will look upside down. If you're left-handed, it will look in the correct way, basically. And the great thing about that, and especially if you're left-handed, I've seen so many users doing that, is that you can scan left to right and right to left. So you can essentially scan backwards when using the device, which a lot of left-handed users actually find it more natural. So do feel free to use it in that way. I mentioned some of the different dictionaries. So we also have different language dictionaries, such as the French, the Spanish, and the US dictionary as well on there. And obviously changing between the Oxford Primary Dictionary for more simplified definitions and the Collins for more in-depth definitions as well is really key here. So you can toggle between the different modes. So these modes I really, really like. So the comfort, the processing support. So we have a mode called the auto read functionality. So what this means is anyone who's on this call today who's used our devices, as you scan over a word or a line and lift the pen up, it automatically reads that line or word back to you, which is great because sometimes the user just needs the odd word for that definition, or they just need that odd word to understand that kind of word that they're looking at. But some students may need maybe one line or several lines or even a whole paragraph read aloud back to them. So with the auto read functionality, what you can do is you can turn it off. So you can toggle it on, which is the default. But if you toggle it off, that means as you scan over a line or scan the next line or even the whole paragraph, it doesn't read aloud back to you until you press the middle button on the pen. So that means, in essence, you can scan a whole paragraph or even a whole page, and the device will read that in one go back to you. So that's the auto read functionality, which I think is really important as well. And then we have the speed and volume functionality, where you can change the volume from volume 5 to boost mode 5, so you can have it a lot louder as well. Especially if you're in a loud classroom and you just want to get on, you can actually have the volume louder on the device. And we also have the speed, where you can change the voice, how quick or how slow you want it to speak back to you, which is really important for that processing. Which kind of brings me on to the word pause and punctuation pause as well, where you can pause between each individual word from 0 to 5. So 0 being the slowest and 5 being the quickest. And what that does is it will go, for example, the, cat, sat, on. So the pen just breaks it down for you, which is just a fantastic feature as well to use. So I'm looking at the time, knowing I'm we're running out of time slowly. So I won't go into too much detail about the other settings, but you can change the brightness. You can have it from auto shutdown from 15 minutes all the way up to 2 hours, which is definitely a recommendation when it comes to exam use.
Right, Jim, I'm going to whistle on a bit. Okay.
Yes.
Good job. We're doing well, and it's really useful to have these clear, helpful demonstration of what the pen will actually do. And I think what our audience have come away with realizing is that actually there's a lot of functionality here. The great thing about the Run Wizard is you just put it into a child's hand, you say run the wizard, and then it's set up more or less pretty well for them to be able to crack on straight away. But if you are going to do that much more systematic piece of work with a child, there's a resource in the pack for you, and it is called Reader 2, How to Set Up Your CPEN Reader 2 for a student, and it will just run through what generally the most appropriate settings are. So feel free to use that resource to help guide you through to get the right settings for your children. There's some really helpful info in there. So I'm going to talk briefly about the exam reader. This is the sister pen. So the white pen can be used for SATs. It's got something on it called an exam lock. So it means that you can use it for the maths and the spelling and punctuation and grammar SAT. You can't use it for the reading SAT at the moment. That's another story. Okay. But at the moment, you can use it for those SATs. The orange one is used usually in secondary school for exams, and this is a JCQ approved pen, so you could use the orange one for SATs. The white pen will behave in exactly the same way as the orange one. It locks down all the functionality, so no dictionary, no dictaphone, no, nothing that could help you get an advantage. The only thing that is enabling you to do is get the reading done so that you can demonstrate your knowledge. So that's the exam reader 2. And in case we do have anybody here from secondary, we have something else in the pack for you. So next slide, Jim. It's the top 10 FAQs for exam reader. So this is helpful if you are an invigilator, if you are an exams officer, if you are a SENDCo, or if you are someone involved in transitioning a child from primary to secondary who's been using a scanning pen, and you want to make sure that the secondary understand that this tool is really important for them and their well-being and their mental health and their ability to access the curriculum. And actually long term, the orange pen's what they're going to need to be successful in their exams. So that if that is relevant and useful for you, please do feel free to find that document. So within the wonderful 24-page implementing the CPEN Reader 2, you will see that there are a number of approaches that you can take to using the pen. And I've split them into individual needs approach, pairing with coaching, literacy toolbox approach, mentioned that at the beginning, and the PedTech approach. If you've not come across this terminology, the pedagogy of technology, there's a really interesting book that is out. London Grid for Learning are talking about it. It's going to start infiltrating teaching practice soon. I'll give you a heads up now. And essentially, it's about thinking about the way we use technology differently. So rather than it sitting there at the side and children just dipping in and out of it, it is much more something that we talk about, that we demonstrate, and that we model. So in this wonderful booklet that Twinkl have twinklified for us, you will find different ways to support introducing those pen to groups of learners. So the Helping Hands Detective Agency is one of those guides, and you will be able to see how to, next slide please Jim, how to set up your learning around the resources we have available. So the Helping Hands is available on the scanningpens.co.uk website in the training hub. It's free to download. I'm afraid it's not on Twinkl. You will need to go and have a little shifty over at Scanning Pens to find this free resource, but you can download that, and there is information about how to run the learning sessions for the individual needs approach in your wonderful Twinkl doc. Next one, Jim. So approaches at Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4, those more mature learners, there's also some ideas. So if we've got some secondary practitioners here today or advisors, you might want to look at this section here, because it will help you to see how you can pitch this pen to those slightly older learners. And essentially it's encouraging them to understand that they can maintain their flow in their learning. That's the reason why they would want to use it. It's because they're going to be able to make a better connection with that highlighted word, because they're going to be able to get the repetition and increase their focus. Beautifully, you can scan, listen, repeat, understand, remember as many times as you need to. So there's limitations to the amount of time a child will put their hand up and ask for human support. After a while, they're going to stop doing that. But if you've got an earbud in your ear and you're discreetly scanning and listening, you get that support as many times as you need to embed that piece of learning or to feel confident that you can move on. And for those older learners, that immersive learning approach is also super appropriate. On the pictures there, you'll see there's a variety of ways that this pen is being listened to. It's being listened to through the speaker in the pen itself, through an external speaker as well. You can use over-the-head headphones, which are useful for younger learners because sometimes they don't like the feel of the earbud in their ear. And also, if you've got it in a toolbox approach and lots of children are using that, we don't want them with the ear, no, nasty. So over-the-head headphones is really great for that. Let's hop on to the next slide, Jim. We mentioned earlier we have a digital bridge between text and digital accessibility. This is outlined in this wonderful document as well. So as Jim said, all you do is you plug the pen in and it will put a scanned, if you scan, it will put those words onto your computer in any application that you open, as long as the cursor's flashing. So it could be a PowerPoint, it could be a Word document. If you've got a child, for example, doing a close activity and they've done a lot of writing and they are really tired, and they cannot do any more because they have reached their capacity with their hand for their ability to write, you could say to them, okay, well, let's finish this close activity using the scanning pen. You can scan the last one and put the right words in. That way you can measure their comprehension, but you're alleviating the challenge that they're facing with their fine motor skills or with their level of exhaustion that they're feeling. And I think that's helpful because it means you can see so much more of what the children are capable of doing. This is where the lights go on for me with assistive technology. It's because all of a sudden children who you didn't realize were capable all of a sudden blow you away with just how capable and knowledgeable they are. They just couldn't put it down on the bit of paper for you, or they couldn't sustain the reading. Let's have the next slide, Jim. Multisensory opportunities, I think, are great. When I did my dyslexia, I did the Hickey multisensory training program, and that was all about using lots of different opportunities. So I love the idea that you can get a labeler and print something out with your labeler, and as long as you've got that thing printed, the pen can scan it and read it. It won't read handwriting, but anything that's printed, fabulous. That means you could print words and put them on Jenga blocks and put them into a Jenga game for comprehension, or children could quite literally read the room. So those children who couldn't access the displays or your working walls could with the scanning pen, and that's a lovely place for them to be in because it opens things up. I've seen such beautiful school displays. A recent display I saw was for book flicks. How good's that, instead of Netflix? And there were some book reviews that had been printed out, and I just thought it was amazing that children could take that pen and then they could scan and find out the exciting books that they could now read with their reader pen because they'd been able to move past the books that they were trapped in reading just because that was what they were able to decode. We talked already a little bit about learner adjustment, so I don't think we need to go over this, but I think it would be useful in the time we've got remaining, and we've only got a little bit of time remaining. Jim, would you like to just perhaps do one case study, talk about the progress, and then we'll talk about our golden tickets? What do you think? And then we've got time for questions.
Yeah, absolutely, Julia. Thank you so much. And I realise about the time, so I will maybe you'll be best placed for the George Dixons, but I'm happy to go through this Prince Albert High School one, which is really relatable. What do you think, Julia?
Yep, so I'll just very quickly say that we've done lots of work, particularly in Birmingham. This has been a great place for us to work in. We've been invited into so many schools. They've really welcomed us in Birmingham. It's a huge local authority. We've worked with lots of the teams, with the Pupil Student Services team. We've worked with Developing Learning Progress team, you know, with DLP teams. We've really worked a lot with those groups, been into schools, and what we've found is that if we provide a pen to children who are at a point where they're stuck, perhaps they've been using interventions and they just need a lift, really. They've got to a point where they're not feeling particularly positive about themselves as a learner. They can make very rapid progress with a reader pen if you make that an intervention point. So over that 8-week project period, many of our children there were making huge learning gains. So 10.3 10.25 months in their reading accuracy. In their comprehension, it was 10.24 months, and reading rate improving by 7 months. That's in 8 weeks. And so those children, just by using that technology, got a tremendous lift. They didn't need to use that pen for a long period of time, to be honest with you. They just needed a really intensive period of time with the pen, and then because they could move on, that pen could go to the next group of children and they could have their reading and learning and comprehension lifted as well. So it's a great way to rapidly move children's learning progress on. So that's all I say about George Diction, other than we've got a really nice video that's available on YouTube via the Scanning Pens website that you can have a look at.